growth and innovation across the cloud, data and generative AI, and emerging technology landscape. With a proven track record of scaling high-performing teams and delivering transformative go-to-market strategies, Paul is passionate about customer success and data-driven leadership as he continues to shape the future of tech-enabled business growth. Please give Paul a round of applause.
I think as a start, what I'm going to really talk about today is some of the emerging technology and growth we've seen from a technology perspective, specifically in banking, but that goes across finance in general. And I think we've got a good role to talk, or a good place to talk from. We see ourselves as leaders and pioneers in emerging technology and AI. I think in the introduction, the 20 years of experience doesn't apply to AI because, yes, it's been around for 20 years or more, but I haven't been in AI for 20 years, so definitely been in tech for 20 years. But yeah, so really I want to talk around that. And where I'll start in that journey is kind of talking about from 2020, obviously just around COVID kind of period, right to where we are today. And I'll make a statement later, but I'll say it now already. We've probably seen, or certainly in my opinion, we've seen more change in technology over the last 6 months than we've certainly seen in the last few years, and in the last 2 years, probably in the last 10. It has been exponential, and the minute I think I know something or I hear something new, within a day, there's something else, right? And I'm like learning constantly. Like, this is the beauty about being in tech, right? You're constantly learning, but at the moment, it's like a freight train. So really, if we look at banking, and we just go back like 5 years, it's like not far. We were talking about a lot of banks. And I'll caveat this by saying many of the bigger banks, or the big four, had started cloud journeys by implementing landing zones, etc., 2018, but hadn't really started taking cloud that seriously up until just past 2020, right? So at this point, we were still very much on premise, right? Like banks, or FSR, financial services in the industry, was pretty much on premise and operating in that way. And in 5 years, we've seen a dramatic shift in the market, moving from the data center, still very much relevant today, but an aggressive move into cloud, which has created a platform to jump into other services that are provided by big public cloud players like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and then obviously some of the Eastern providers like Huawei, etc., providing opportunities on the continent broader than what the big American players play here, even the likes of Oracle with OCR, etc. That's obviously led to fundamental shifts in security, because securing an on-premise environment, like we were talking about earlier, is fundamentally different to the world of cloud. And then we've got this big word called, AI, right? And suddenly this thing has grabbed everybody's attention, right? The minute my wife, who's a nursery school teacher, is starting to play with ChatGPT in the palm of her hand, it tells you this stuff is not going away, right? It's fundamentally shifting the way we do things. And the impact on banking and financial services and other industries, which I'd like to touch on as well, if I don't run out of time. I do suffer from verbal diarrhea, but I'm going to try and stick to 20 minutes. But is absolutely huge, right? So we've seen a big shift. So 2020, still very much on premise, right? Traditional data centers, lots of legacy, particularly in the big banks, like decades and decades of data sitting in dated systems. How do you get that out? There were big questions around that back then. I think COVID was a significant driver to moving to cloud, together with some of the challenges from an electricity perspective in South Africa, right? Suddenly, the complexity of managing a data center, plus the need for the consumer to go online, changed the whole face of business in South Africa. Whether you were in banking, retail, logistics, it didn't make a difference. Suddenly, your operating hours weren't constrained by the days that your doors were open, right? They were constrained by somebody having a device in their hand, which fundamentally changed things. So suddenly scalability was a real need. In this world, yeah, right, data center world, you bought kit for the worst case scenario. So you ran at 30%, give or take, most of the time, but you bought another 70% in case when Black Friday hits, the 15th in December for a bank, the 30th or the 25th for a bank, etc., etc. The rest of the time it was idle, right? So suddenly this demand changed. 21 to 23 started seeing this move towards cloud, certainly in the South African context, largely lift and shift in its nature, dipping your toes in water, everybody a little bit nervous, application owners asking big questions about if I modernize my application, will it still run optimally, will it run the same way, etc., etc., until where we are today, where we're now starting to do modernization in cloud. Organizations that haven't gone to cloud yet are now taking an approach of rather than going lift and shift, certainly lift, shift, and modernize in kind of one go, which I won't go into today because that's a whole subject on another on its own, and I could speak for 3 hours around the different models of going or methods of going to cloud in that way. But really, really fundamentally different. So suddenly now we're using microservices architecture. We're fundamentally transforming code that we're using. We're taking away the legacy world and we're now modernizing it for our customers, providing a better experience for our customers and changing the way we do business. Suddenly, though, in amongst all of this, AI comes into play. And we've known AI has been around for 30, 40, 50 years, right? Question is why? Why on earth haven't we leveraged it before? One could be down to fear, right? Fair enough. Two, we never had the compute power to do it, quite frankly, right? If you're running your own little data center, you try and run ChatGPT or one of these kind of things or Gemini or whatever it is, you just don't have the compute power to do it, right? And now with the advent of public cloud, it's now provided a platform for us to be able to access that kind of compute power through our mobile device or whatever it might be. So it's fundamentally changed things. What this has done is it's changed also the way that we do modernization in the cloud, right? We're suddenly utilizing AI to fast-track things fundamentally, to do things far quicker. So we're starting to automate the workflows, whereas in the past was all manual processes. Our insights were based on an engineer's insights and engineer's experience. We're suddenly now getting predictive analytics because the machine learning is learning from previous examples and currently what's in that environment. Dynamic scaling is an interesting thing, right? Because when we talk to a customer about moving to cloud, one of the big things is around scalability, right? You don't have to buy for the worst case scenario. You scale up and down as you need, right? Perfect. So what does everybody do? They scale up. How many scale down? Not many, right? Because it's an overhead, it's management, it's a fundamental shift and transformational shift in the way you manage your infrastructure, right? And that's one of the biggest downfalls so far in the migration to cloud is that it's a business transformation, it's not a technical move, actually. And most organizations treat it as a technical project, right? So with AI now being dynamic and managing that for you, to a large degree, it's allowing us to actually realize the benefits of scaling. Proactive security, most of the security solutions have got AI built into them today, and we talked a little bit about that earlier. And in fact, fascinating, there was a press release yesterday last night from Cloudflare, talking about how they are changing the way they allow crawlers from AI agents to work through the web, right? So it's fascinating. Go search for it. It's fundamentally changing. It's either going to make them or it's going to break them. They're only 20% right now, but it's very interesting. I've got it on my phone, so I can read the article to you later if we've got time. And then cost optimization is a big thing, right? FinOps. How do we manage FinOps? Most organizations, if you're big enough, you employ your own FinOps team, and they manage that cloud infrastructure. They manage where they optimize, how they optimize, et cetera, both technically and financially. But now with AI, we can do both. So we are seeing through this that we could be able to deploy and modernize 85% faster, right? We're seeing 60% cost reduction because we're not relying on humans to do the FinOps side of things. Uptime accuracy, we'll go throw 99.9 somewhere in a slide. And then threat prevention, we're starting to get 95% higher threat protection. And we're seeing a slightly different way of approaching a migration in analyze, plan, execute, and optimize as opposed to the traditional way. So really, really interesting. From our perspective as synthesis, I mean, this creates other concerns for us, right? I suddenly don't need the same size team to deploy or to modernize an environment, right? So if I've got a team of 100 people, 100 engineers, right? Maybe I don't need 100 engineers anymore, right? Like it's quite impactful, this whole thing. So just on the summary, I mean, I'm very happy to share the slides with you later, but really, I think just picking out a couple of them, performance optimization, really key through AI, the anomaly detection, smart recommendations are really powerful because they're taking away the human side of things, and obviously these agents don't sleep, which is hugely beneficial. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, it can pick up that the servers need to be brought down or whatever it might be. Okay. So since we're talking about Gen AI or AI in general, I want to take a little bit of a shift and move into AI specifically and recognize that it's very much part of the cloud journey, but where organizations are going today. And if we look at Gen AI, it's quite fascinating because a year ago, maybe 18 months ago, Gen AI was quite a bright conversation. Like a lot of people were talking about it, few understood it, but I suppose with the emergence of ChatGPT and the likes, people started becoming more familiar with it and it started gathering momentum. It's bubbled all along. It's done quite well. We haven't seen adoption of it massively in organizations. One of the biggest challenges we've had in organizations is underlying data architectures, right? And one banker once said to me, Paul, there's no question that Gen AI can deliver value to my business. The problem is the value sits in non-internet related processes. And Gen AI relies on the internet. It has to be internet facing. That's how it's getting its data, right? How do I do it inside my organization? That was 8 months ago. Obviously, we've seen a fundamental shift where you can now bring that into your organization and have it privatized, if I can call it that, and access, kind of under the hood kind of processes. But it was a challenge for organizations as general kind of consumers of technology in personal capacities. It started gathering a lot of momentum. And I'd like to share a case study with you of a personal case study from a friend of mine of how that's affected his business. But suddenly, 6 months ago, a concept called MCP was born, Model Context Protocol. And the first organization to jump onto this actually was Claude, right? And what that did, and the one little challenge with it right now is MCP is not cloud oriented, so it's local, but it allows you to drop down an MCP server and provide local context to applications, which I'll give you an idea of how that works there. That was 6 months ago, largely still unknown. Probably the last 2 months, got a lot more people understanding what MC is about. Still not hugely used by some of the other tools at this point. Claude definitely leading the race there, but the rest will get there very fast. 4 weeks ago, suddenly agentic AI rocks up. And everybody knows about agentic AI, right? And this fundamentally shifts the way we do things in business and in our personal lives, and will fundamentally transform the way we do things, right? It's moving from prompt to automated to decision-making on our behalves. It's fundamentally shifting. So I'd like to share some ideas we have around banking that's going to shift the way our customer experience is managed and how our lives will be changed through this technology. And now we've also got ACP, which is Agent Connect Protocol, so going even further. So a personal use case for me, utilizing MCP and Claude, was in my role as a CRO. I look after our sales function, our marketing function, and our strategic alliances or partnership functions. And so a big part of my responsibility is managing sales forecasts, right, and making sure that the sales forecast and the income statement forecast align. Like this is like not unusual for any other business. Doesn't matter whether you're in tech like me or whether you're in manufacturing or banking, you're going to have the same scenario. And one of the challenges we've got, like many organizations, is a deal recognized in sales is not the same deal that's recognized in the income statement, right? I might recognize a 30 million rand deal in sales, but that's actually made up of 10 monthly increments of 3 million rand, right? So the income statement is going to see 3. My sales dashboard sees 30. Okay, big problem. So how do we solve for that? We've got Salesforce and we've got our ERP system. I have my sales ops team, they extract an Excel report, and they go through and they manipulate all the data, and they take the data and they look at the deal size, they look at the deal duration, and where they have the intel around what the actual billable amounts are per month, they use that, otherwise they divide the amount by the number of months the project's going to run. Not complicated. Anyway, I'm sitting on a Monday afternoon, my MD says to me, Paul, I need this thing by tomorrow. I'm like, fantastic, no problem. I chat to my sales ops team. They're like, oh, no, we can't get it there. I said, how far have you got? They said, no. We're quite far. I said, just send it to me. I'll do it. No problem. Monday night, family's all now and I'm watching TV. 9 o'clock, I think, good time to log onto my laptop. This will take an hour. All good. 1 a.m., I finish this flippin' report. 3 hours. I'm like, what the hell? I phoned the Oaks the next day. I'm like, how long does this take you? They said, like, no, 3-4 hours. I said, every second week. They're like, yeah. I'm like, no, this is madness. Absolute madness. So I call my head of technology, Tom, and I say, Tom, listen, this is my problem. He says, yeah, the problem. I said to him, we've got to automate this, mate. Like, surely, we can do this through Salesforce, right? He says, yes, we can, but we can also do this through AI. So I'm, okay, cool, show me how. So he goes, give me a couple of minutes. He comes back to me and he says, cool. I've got an MCP server on my laptop. Obviously, I use Claude. I've integrated Claude into Salesforce using the MCP server. I've written the prompt. This took him 30 minutes, like between the two calls. And he says, okay, I'm going to run it. And he runs it, and suddenly I don't get an Excel sheet. I get dashboards, graphs, Excel data, the whole bang shoot in 55 minutes. Now I go, okay, cool. Claude, you've still got the API. What do I need? I need to change the data. It takes me 5 minutes to run that because I'm a slow typer. So it takes me a little bit long to put the prompt in. But that takes me 5 minutes, which took me 4 hours previously, which I relied on somebody else for, that I can do immediately. So this fundamentally makes a massive shift in my world, just at an operational level. Can you imagine what it can do for any organization or any function, right? So this is the kind of shift we are seeing. It's not replacing people, but it is saving a huge amount of time, right? It doesn't mean that I have to sit between 9 and 1 a.m. on a Monday night or on a Sunday night. So really, really fascinating that in a personal experience for me. One of the challenges that we've also got, though, is that the reality is that we are facing a plethora of tools and platforms and questions of what you use, when, how, what are they all for, et cetera, and it's only exploding more and more. So to break it into two components, there are two sides of the coin. There's a platform and there's a tool, right? So platforms, you can consider bringing a lot of things together to deliver an outcome. So things like Perplexity, which would be content generation, they might look at, if you put in a prompt in Perplexity, they will use a combination of Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT to get the right answer. Something like Notebook LM, is great from a podcast perspective, creating podcasts for you. An example of this is a colleague of mine had a meeting the other day with a customer, and he sent me the podcast. Basically, he took the transcript from the meeting, right, which is obviously AI generated, made sure it was all right, chucked it into Notebook. Notebook automatically created a podcast around how we were going to solution to the customer. Like, this took him 5-10 minutes, right? Like, this we wouldn't have even done in the past. We would have gone back and written a proposal, right? So fundamentally changing the way we're going to engage with customers going forward. And then the last one, Replits, is all around code generations and being able to build apps. So it'll build an app. So you'll create a prompt around an app that you want to build, and instead of having to do the software dev on it, it will build it for you. Frightening. I mean, it's changing the way we do things, right? The only problem is the app world is dying. So Agentic AI has rocked up and is going to change everything that we do. So at the moment, we in this world, app-driven, right? Remember the days of internet banking, how that transformed our world, right? I don't have to go into a branch anymore. I sit on my phone, I click a button, I can do everything. But if I want to do multiple things, I go to multiple apps to get that done. Right, and in my next 2 slides time, I'm going to showcase a story that will talk to this. But if I want to book some travel, for example, I might go to my bank account and I might make sure I've got the right funds, and then I'll go to the app. It's very app intensive, and I have to drive it. Agentic AI will do it for you. So imagine a world, right now where at the end of the month today, I go and I say, I need to make certain payments. Certain are debit orders, certain I want to be in control of, right? Because they change. Maybe my rates, maybe my domestic or garden service or something like that. Maybe the amounts I pay monthly changes from time to time. So those are going monthly, and I hope like hell I remember who to pay, right? And hopefully they're not too many, and hopefully the numbers aren't too big. But I've got to physically go do that. And I've got to remember that the 30th I've got to do it till the 29th. Agentic AI turns that on its head and says, hang on a second. From a banking perspective, I'm going to tell you that today is the 30th, and typically on today, you pay your garden service 3,000 Rand. Do you mind if I make that transaction? Yes. Done. I haven't touched my mobile device. Or, good morning, I know that you always used to look for the weather. Today, the weather there is. Suddenly very much driven compared to. If you now play this into a world of customer delight, it's fundamentally going to change the way we operate. And the mobile phone of today is not what it is tomorrow. And you're already starting to see that this movement is so fast, it's frightening. So fast. And this is moving the agent world to the next complete level. And it's super exciting. So the case study I want to share with you, and it's not a case study you will find on the web because it's a personal one. I've been caught up in this craze of paddle, tennis thing. Okay, and I'm playing with a guy the other day, and I didn't know him very well, and afterwards I played a couple of games, and we had a cup of coffee afterwards, as you typically do. And as you're often asked, you say to the guy, "What do you do?" Yeah, what do you do, Paul? I'm in tech. Easiest way to explain it. What do you do? Yeah, no, he's in tourism. I said, oh, fantastic. He lives in Cape Town. I said, oh, that's great. What kind of tourism? He says, adventure tourism. I said, geez, must be booming, eh? He's like, sure. He gives me a weird answer. And I said to him, and he starts talking to me about, do I know this person? Do I know this person? And I said to him, it's interesting. You keep asking me about these people, but they're all in tech. Why are you asking me about these people? He says to me, no, he's actually looking for a job. I said, but I thought you were in tourism. He said, I am. I've run a successful business for 18 years. And today, over the last year, I've seen it fall off a cliff. I said, but I don't understand. His name's Gav. I said, Gav, I don't understand. The market's booming. Like Cape Town, the Western Cape, is the hub for adventure tourism. How can it be? He said, because I'm disintermediated as a tour guide. I said, that's interesting. He said, Paul, I'm surprised I need to explain this to you. But today, a person doesn't come to me to put together an itinerary. They go onto the web, they go onto booking.com, they go onto FlightStart, they book their own flights, they generate their own itinerary, they book their own hotels, they search on the web and they go, what I need this oak for, I'll jump off that little cliff, I'm sure nothing will go wrong. Or I'll hire that, I'll search for something around abseiling, I don't know, I suppose, Western Cape, abseil, and I'll just book it directly. Right? And suddenly he's finding that's a challenge. And it suddenly made me think, I was fortunate with my family to go to Japan recently on a holiday. And my wife constructed the entire itinerary on ChatGPT. Didn't go to a travel agent. Went into ChatGPT and created the entire itinerary from day 1 through to day 12. Booked the flights online. Happy days. We didn't touch anybody. Gave her complete advice, best hotels to stay in, well, not best at lowest price, hotels to stay. And then you're there, and you suddenly realize that there are 138 million people on this little island, and very few speak English. Fascinating. And why we would think they would speak English in Japan, I don't know, I suppose, but you do, and suddenly you have something like Google Translate, right? And you hover your phone over a menu and it gives you the English. And you speak to somebody and it translates for you in real time. And you think just a few years ago, this was not real. So if you're not convinced that technology is changing at a rapid rate and fundamentally changing the way we live and the way we operate in our businesses, you are going to be left behind. And I think in closing, I don't know how well I've done for time. She's not bad, actually. We're going to see these three things are the most significant change that we're going to see in banking and in business in in a long time. They will fundamentally shift the way we do things. Fundamentally, they're going to lead and change the way we work with customers and the experience our customers have with us. They will drive operational excellence, as in my example with MCP for myself and for banks who employ thousands upon thousands of people. It will drive innovation, like I talked about the mobile app, and suddenly no longer an internet banking app required, but agentic AI driving how you bank. And it will give you a competitive advantage. The only question you have is how quickly you're going to be able to change and adapt to this to serve your customers better. And there is a real opportunity if you make that change, as I've put down there in the bottom, in being customer-centric, et cetera, et cetera. So that is what I've got to share with you today. If you want to make contact with me, I've popped my details up there. LinkedIn's quite good. My mail address there is my mobile number there. You're welcome to take a photo and contact me anytime. But yeah, thanks very much for your time today.